As arguably the most recognizable pair in the FGC for years, especially in the modern era, Mike Ross and Ryan Gutierrez played an instrumental role in the fighting game media and content creation spaces. Though while the two had their hand in many fighting game related projects, both on their own and jointly, the weekly fighting game series The Excellent Adventures of Gootecks and Mike Ross was a show that had risen to the top of the FGC ranks, and even held its #1 spot for years, yet ultimately fell down from grace and lost its magic somewhere along the way.
Illegally rock my face around town. I think there's a way where they can, wait a minute, you're wearing the same shirt. What? Yes! Gootecks! More gimmicks!
Ryan Gutierrez, more prominently known as Gootecks around the fighting game scene, was a competitive player in the community for many years, making a name for himself predominantly with the Street Fighter series, which included games like Street Fighter 3 Third Strike and Street Fighter 4 along with its many iterations. Mike Ross, who is also known as a competitive player around the same time, also made a name for himself in the community predominantly by competing in titles such as Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and Street Fighter 4 as well. With the two Southern California competitors and friends competing during the same time, the two began working together on a show called Cross Counter Live, an FGC-centric news and interview-focused show airing on the Stream.tv, with Cross Counter Live gaining more traction, especially with its format of including community figureheads such as Street Fighter legend Alex Valle, longtime Tekken and Soul Calibur competitor Eris, and many others. The tandem started to gain more of a presence in the fighting game content creation world. The early days of the two joining forces did not only include Cross Counter Live, but also saw them appear on the official Cross Counter TV YouTube channel playing Street Fighter 4 online in late 2010, which was also the same year Mike Ross placed 4th at what was then without question the most competitive Street Fighter 4 tournament at the time, EVO 2010. The first few episodes of Excellent Adventures, while minimalistic, captured the unscripted charisma of both Gootecks and Mike Ross, and perhaps most importantly, their chemistry together, all while playing a game they both enjoy, Street Fighter 4. As the show progressed, the audience saw more into the life and personalities of the two, with spin-off videos such as the real-life adventures of Gootecks and Mike Ross, and eventually they introduced a camera element in addition to the gameplay capture, and later the inclusion of FGC guests to compete online as part of the show. However, Mike Ross and Gootecks truly began to capture momentum in the year 2011 as Cross Counter TV featured more interviews of fighting game players from around the world, various clips from gaming events and tournaments, as well as spin-off shows such as Marvelous Adventures featuring Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and The Incredible Adventures featuring Mortal Kombat 9, to go along with now the firmly established Excellent Adventures featuring Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition.
It would make sense that they would give him something to do with the twins.
He was like Donnie Brasco or something. You put in so much work.
You thought we were boys. I thought this was my boy.
As the years progressed, Gootecks and Mike Ross became staples in almost every big event surrounding the FGC. They would appear on many platforms, some fighting game focused and some more mainstream. The two had become iconic figureheads in the fighting game landscape. Cross Counter Live continued featuring a plethora of fighting game guests, game-related news and discussions relating to both fighting game design, tournament results, and even FGC philosophy, with the occasional mention of more mainstream gaming. The combination of Street Fighter 4's rising popularity, new titles to feature such as Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and the constant content innovation, which included fighting game lessons and basic tutorials of various games, top local and global player interviews, and the comedic-infused theme of Excellent Adventures, the stock of the busy duo only saw an upward trajectory. With the expansion of content, the Cross Counter brand has certainly made its presence known in the global fighting game community, as seen with its widespread reach demonstrated with Cross Counter Asia, featuring the show Excellent Asian Adventures headlined by then community figure and commentator Z, as well as top Street Fighter player Cien. Fast forwarding to early 2014, the year that truly launched the duo to the top of the FGC, as Gootecks and Mike Ross found themselves on the ESGN TV program Fight Night, with Mike competing on the show and Gootecks broadcasting as one half of the commentary crew. Following their appearance on Fight Night, the two continued traveling to both national and international tournaments and events, all while still focusing primarily on filming Excellent Adventures, as by then Cross Counter Live had ceased production after experiencing format changes and exterior factors leading to the show's instability. However, perhaps the true launchpad for Excellent Adventures appeared in the form of Ultra Street Fighter 4, the final expansion for the series, which came in June of 2014. With the game rejuvenated once again, the duo made the most of the climate and seized the opportunity by improving production for the show show, introducing more guests, and implementing a subscription-based model for the whole show rather than waiting for the weekly episodes to come out on YouTube. By the year 2015, it was without a question that Gootecks and Mike Ross were at the center of the fighting game community's attention. With the rise of the show, Gootecks would continue pushing additional content on the Cross Counter YouTube channel, and Mike would take a position at the live streaming juggernaut, Twitch. Therefore, it would seem as the two arguably saw their professional peak arrive during the same time.
And unite. You're manly, but at the same time you wear kind of weirdly fitting clothes. You know.
The success of Ultra Street Fighter IV translated itself to mass success of the fighting game community, as it was a time that Capcom's fighting game division was in the FGC's good graces. The community also saw tournament numbers rise, and the platform for fighting games grow, which inherently only aided the cross-counter duo. By late 2015, Mike Ross had already begun his second season of being the host of Capcom Pro Talk, a Street Fighter-centric talk show featuring guests airing weekly on Twitch. He was also still fulfilling his role as a fighting game ambassador for Twitch, as well as his duties with Excellent Adventures and promoting the FGC on other major media outlets. Gootecks would continue his work on the Cross Counter YouTube channel, as well as organizing fighting game get-togethers such as bar fights, and fulfilling his commentary roles while traveling for tournaments. However, the beginning of the end came sooner than anticipated in somewhat of a surprising fashion. Coming off the heels of one of the best years Street Fighter IV had experienced, with back-to-back grand showcases at EVO 2015 and Capcom Cup 2015, Street Fighter V launched in early 2016 after a mixed reaction post-beta. With the duo often capitalizing on new Street Fighter momentum, this time was different, as it was apparent that the wind behind Street Fighter V's sail did not last nearly as long as it did for Street Fighter IV. Throughout the year 2016, Gootecks and Mike Ross continued on as usual with their combined and separate efforts in the fighting game landscape. However, the ultimate undoing of the Excellent Adventures crew was brought on by the same factor that made the tandem so entertaining: their transparency. By the end of 2016, Mike Ross had left Twitch, along with his role as Capcom Pro Talk's host, and the Cross Counter YouTube channel had seen a decline in viewership despite Gootecks' effort to collaborate with other fighting game players and creators for various content. Though Street Fighter V's polarizing status in the fighting game community notwithstanding, the most theorized reason for the decline of Excellent Adventures at the time was simply the apparent fact that the duo was no longer genuinely having fun while playing the game. Despite efforts to keep the show going, the passion that was once present had left the famous Excellent Adventures set, especially on the side of Mike Ross, as he often could not contain his disdain for the game, as well as his overall disinterest in fooling the viewer that he is enjoying his time. With the heavy decline in numbers in comparison to what was the norm during the Ultra Street Fighter IV days of the show, as well as the apparent lack of passion displayed at times by both Gootecks and Mike Ross, the final nail in the coffin appeared in early June of 2017, when Mike Ross announced he was leaving the show, as well as the FGC.
I can't do it. I can't support anything that I see anymore, so for you guys watching, I hope you do enjoy it, and I hope you find great entertainment out of it, because that's good. That's all that matters at the end of the day. But for me, I am going to be signing out. I had a great time, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the content that they create out there, but I'm done. Thank you so much for listening, and I won't see you next time.
In the wake of Mike Ross taking an indefinite hiatus from the FGC due to his personal displeasure with how the current quote-unquote esports times are treating the scene, it did not take long for Excellent Adventures as well as the entirety of Cross Counter's content to lose resonance with the fighting game community. Despite Gootecks' attempts to keep the show alive, regardless of the guests or ensemble cast, resurrection efforts fell short. In turn, the Cross Counter channel did experiment with different shows that modeled the Excellent Adventure format, such as The Recipe, which showcased games like Tekken and Guilty Gear, which featured Tasty Steve and Sajam, as well as The Reeds showcasing Super Smash Bros. Melee featuring Scar and Toph. Although the new shows did receive positive feedback both from the FGC and the Smash community, they ultimately ceased filming, leaving Gootecks to experiment with other ideas such as the Untitled Esports Show, a form of a video podcast discussing esports and the FGC, as well as various lessons and training mode streams mostly relating to Street Fighter V. Meanwhile, during the same time Gootecks was attempting to rejuvenate the Cross Counter name, Mike Ross had kept a low profile, with very few online online interactions, few being a Reddit post which delves a bit deeper as to why he decided to remove himself from the FGC, and then later somewhat of a wasted podcast appearance on the Event Hub's podcast. Moving to present day, as of late August 2020, the last upload seen on the Cross Counter YouTube channel is of Gootecks somewhat anxiously talking to his audience about his life in quarantine, and his past in the FGC and experience as a content creator. Currently, Mike Ross continues to keep a low profile, and has only done a handful of FGC related showings, one being a tournament appearance under a different alias, and the others being FGC commentary and hosting of sorts. At this point in time, he is seen occasionally streaming Dota 2 on Twitch without a camera or a microphone.
Do I have a treat for you?
Gootecks and Mike Ross were two figures in the FGC whom at one point in time everyone knew, especially in the United States and the North American scene. It was their chemistry as a duo, along with the assistance of a popular game in Street Fighter IV, that truly saw their status in the fighting game community rise. However, in what was roughly a time frame of 36 months, the momentum completely changed direction, as the two saw their highest peak during an 18-month stretch between mid-2014 to early 2016, yet their lowest valley during the 18-month stretch between early 2016 and mid-2017. Although the FGC's landscape is entirely different currently compared to a decade ago during the rise of the Excellent Adventures, it should be noted that the work both Gootecks and Mike Ross put into the entertainment landscape of fighting games played an instrumental part in how current content creation is approaching the FGC. Like any flame, they may have fizzled out. However, it is arguable that at one point in time, at least in the world of fighting games, Gootecks, Mike Ross, and Excellent Adventures was the hottest thing around.
Well, Gootecks, all the kids at school today made fun of me because of the size of my stick. Gootecks, how can I get a bigger stick like yours?
Wow, Mike. If you want a bigger stick like one of these, you can go to this URL right there and use coupon code CrossCounter to save 10% off of one of your new Mad Catz TE sticks.
Well, I'm gonna go get a bigger stick today.
That would be a good idea. This is very small. This one is much bigger.